From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
After earning an MFA in creative writing, Annie began her writing career. She divides her time between writing books and public speaking.
Annie has spoken at hundreds of school visits and is hilarious on stage.
Yay! Please give a warm welcome to Annie Barrows!
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hello, everybody. What they said was true. I am Annie Barrows, and I am the author of the Ivy and Bean books. Now, for those of you who are not totally 100% up on your Ivy and Bean lore, this person here is Ivy, and this person here is Bean. And before they met each other, they did not like each other, not one little bit, because Bean's the kind of kid who likes to run around and yell and scream. And Ivy's the kind of kid who likes to read big books. So before they met, Bean figured that Ivy might just be the most boring kid in the entire world. But one day, Bean was having a little bit of trouble with her older sister, Nancy, and she needed to run away from home. She found herself at Ivy's house, and that's when she discovered that Ivy was practicing to be a witch when she grew up. That was interesting. Together, the girls decided that they really needed to put a spell on Bean's older sister, Nancy, a spell to make her dance uncontrollably for the rest of her life. This did not work out like they planned, but there were worms, and there was mud, and Nancy completely freaked out, so it was a good day. And after that day, Ivy and Bean were the best of friends. They were the best of friends in the second book, Ivy and Bean and the Ghost That Had to Go. This concerns a haunted bathroom at the girls' school. They were the best of friends in the third book, Ivy and Bean Break the Fossil Record. This is about a time when all the kids in Ivy and Bean's class were trying to break world's records and mostly just hurting themselves. Ivy and Bean Take Care of the Babysitter is about a terrible, horrible, dreadful day when Bean's older sister Nancy babysat Bean, but Ivy rescued her. Ivy and Bean Bound to Be Bad is about a day when the girls tried to be really, 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 really good. In their innermost souls good. Didn't work out. Ivy and Bean Doomed to Dance is about ballet and squids. Ivy and Bean What's the Big Idea is about a time when the girls solve the problem of global warming. Excellent solution. Ivy and Bean No News is Good News was about money and cheese, essentially. But I am not here to talk about any of those books. I am here to talk about the newest, the brand new, the wonderful, the fresh off the printing press 9th book, Ivy and Bean Make the Rules. I see one out there even. You guys are so quick. Now, here's the thing about this book. This book begins with Bean's older sister, Nancy. On spring break, she is going to Girl Power Forever Camp. At Girl Power Forever Camp, Nancy is going to learn how to do crafts and nature study and dance and first aid and all sorts of other really super cool fun things that Bean is never, ever, ever going to find out about because you have to be 11 to go to Girl Power Forever Camp. If you are 7, like Bean, and like lots of other really nice people, you can't go to Girl Power Forever Camp. The only camp you can go to is puppet fun. Bean would never in a million years go to puppet fun. But Bean does not care, because Bean is going to make her own camp, her own better camp with crafts and nature study and dance and first aid, and most important of all, with Ivy, because everything's more fun with Ivy. And in no time at all, Ivy and Bean have a camp It's a real camp, completely real, genuine camp with real counselors, Counselor Ivy and Counselor Bean. Also, their camp has a real camp name. It is called Camp Flaming Arrow. That is a flaming arrow. Also, they have a tent. They made it with duct tape and curtains. You can make anything with duct tape, kids. They have their camp in the real place where all the camps are, Monkey Park, just up the block from their house. They have real campers, Harlan and Franny. And best of all, they have some rules. Now, said Bean, we always start with a little talk about camp rules. So sit down, crisscross applesauce, hop to it. Harlan and Franny plopped down on the grass and waited obediently. Ivy and Bean looked at each other with shining eyes. This was going to be good. No one ever let them make the rules. Rule number 1, said Bean. You can only have as much fun as you are willing to get hurt. What? Said Franny. Rule 2, said Ivy. Live and learn. Her mom said that a lot. Rule 3, said Bean. The counselor is always right. Ivy began to giggle. Rule 4, if you want to make an omelet, you got to break some eggs. If you can't beat 'em, join 'em, bellowed Bean. Don't get mad, get even, said Ivy. I don't think this is a real camp, said Franny. Time for nature study, said Bean. Now, Ivy was the counselor in charge of nature study. It was only fair. She knew a lot about nature. She knew about bugs and dinosaurs and tornadoes, but what the heck was nature study? Ivy was not sure. So she brought every nature-y thing she had to Camp Flaming Arrow. Please be seated, said Ivy to Harlan and Franny. They sat. These are our nature study materials, said Ivy. Our kit. Ooh, that was good. A kit sounded like something a counselor would have. This is a magnifying glass. She held it up. We know, said Franny. Shh, said Bean. Ivy held up a pair of goggles. These are goggles. They protect your eyes during explosions. Explosions? Asked Harlan. Ivy held up binoculars for seeing things that are far away. Like what? Said Franny. What are we gonna see? Shh, said Bean. Paper bags, said Ivy, waving them for specimens. What specimens? Said Franny. I don't see any specimens. Hey, said Bean. The counselor is always right. I don't think this is real nature study, grumbled Franny. Let's do some crafts. Bean was just about to get mad when Ivy spoke. Fine, she said like she didn't care. If you want to go off by yourself and do crafts, that's okay. But you will be missing a very special event, a very unusual event, because today's nature study is the Komodo dragon. A dragon? Squeaked Harlan. Well, actually, Komodo dragons are lizards, Ivy explained, but they're longer than 2 grown-ups put together. Their spit is red and poisonous, and guess what? They don't ever poop. What do they look like? Asked Harlan, and how can they not poop? They look like giant brown lizards. They can't chew. They don't have any taste buds. She didn't know how they could not poop, so she didn't answer that question. Do they live here? Asked Harlan, looking around. How can they not poop? They eat goats whole, said Ivy. And they live here in Monkey Park? Asked Franny. She didn't sound like she believed it. Ivy looked at Bean. Komodo dragons are very, very rare in Monkey Park, she said, but we might get lucky today. And this was true. There might be a Komodo dragon that had escaped from the zoo. It's just possible. In fact, I think I'd better go get my Komodo catcher, just in case. Really? Said Harlan. He bounced a little. We're going to catch one? Maybe, said Ivy. I'll be right back. While Ivy ran to her house, Bean gave the campers a little pep talk. At least it started out as a pep talk. Nature study is one of the most important parts of camp, she said, but it's also one of the most dangerous. She squinted her eyes like a cowboy. We've lost a few campers at nature study. Lost? Said Harlan. Where? Bean shook her head slowly. She was feeling more like a cowboy every minute. Monkey Park, she drawled. It's wild land. Harlan looked worried. Maybe we should just skip nature study. Oh, it ain't camp without nature study, said Bean. She wanted to spit, but it usually dribbled down her front, so she didn't. Don't fret, little fella. We're going in prepared. You sound like a cowboy, said Franny. Well, ma'am, began Bean, but just then Ivy came running back with a butterfly net in her hand. That's a butterfly net, said Franny. It's a Komodo catcher, said Ivy. Bean picked up a thick stick. And this here's a Komodo whopper, she said. Harlan put on the goggles. What if they eat us? He asked. Oh, Harlan, said Franny, it's just made up. There aren't any Komodo dragons. Don't be so sure, missy, said Bean, rubbing the part of her face where a beard would be. Let's move out, nice and slow. Ivy led them through the little woods. They wound among the trees, their feet crunching quietly over leaves, and Bean began to think that if there were a Komodo dragon, it would be very hard to see. Halt! Ivy whisper shouted. Bean and Harlan and Franny halted. Ivy bent down and scrabbled in the dirt. Look, she cried, a specimen. She held out a muddy lump. The Komodo has been here. Harlan lifted his goggles to get a good look. What is that thing? This is the remains of the Komodo's breakfast. Ivy peered at it. I believe it was a goat. A goat? Said Harlan. That was a goat? Oh, Harlan, said Franny. It wasn't a goat. She's just making it up. Ivy turned a little bit red. Back one, please, Vicky. I am not making it up. Yes, you are, said Franny. I believed it was a goat, and I do. Bean could see that Ivy was getting mad. Bean knew from experience that when Ivy got mad, she got stubborn. She and Franny were probably going to have an argument. Yep, now they were having it. You don't know anything about Komodo dragons, Ivy was saying. Bean sat down and looked over at the field. The soccer teams were there again. It wasn't a game with moms and dads watching. It was a bunch of kids kicking a ball around while a teenager yelled at them. Soccer camp, Bean guessed. Hey, one of the kids was Leo, who went to school with Ivy and Bean. He was mostly their friend, even though he called them wackos sometimes. As Bean watched, the teenager stopped yelling and walked away, talking on his cell phone. As soon as his back was turned, the soccer kids went bonkers, kicking balls this way and that. Leo was one of the fastest, zigzagging and screeching and waving his arms wildly. Wildly. Bean started to laugh. Hey! She poked Ivy with her stick. Check it out. It's an escaped Komodo dragon. What? Said Franny. Ivy turned and saw. She laughed. Why, it's a whole herd of them. Get the big one, Bean yelled. She jumped up and began to run, waving her whopper. Ivy followed with her butterfly net. Komodo hunt! Bean screamed to Franny and Harlan, and they took off behind her. Leo was so busy running around, he didn't notice Bean until she was right next to him. Hey, he said, Bean, what are you doing? Get him, she yelled to Ivy. Ivy almost got the net over Leo's head, but he dodged away. Head him off at the pass, cried Bean to Harlan and Franny. Leo didn't bother asking any more questions after that. He just ran. Waggling the whopper over her head, Bean charged after him. Circle round, she shrieked. Ivy and Franny and Harlan tore after him. He swung around and headed in the other direction, but there was Bean and her whopper. Leo turned again and ran smack into Ivy. Got him, Ivy yelled, which wasn't exactly true since both she and Leo were on the ground. Bag him, hollered Bean, and Ivy dropped the net over Leo's head. Good work, panted Bean, galloping up with Harlan and Franny. Leo was panting too. What are you guys doing? Bean poked Leo with her whopper. I'll be gall blamed. It's a talking Komodo, she said. Very rare, gasped Ivy. Leo looked at them. What are you guys talking about? You're a Komodo dragon, Harlan said. A small one, said Bean. A runt, giggled Ivy. I am not, said Leo. What is this? It's camp, said Ivy. We're the counselors, said Bean. This is nature study, said Franny. It's a Komodo dragon hunt, said Ivy. And you're the Komodo dragon, said Harlan. Leo took the net off his head. You guys are wackos, you know that? Bean stood up. Come on, campers, time to move out. Wait, said Leo. He rolled over on his stomach. You want to hunt a real Komodo dragon? Try catching that kid over there. He pointed at a kid who was whizzing by with a soccer ball. Hey, Juanito, you're a Komodo. The kid stopped whizzing. What? Get him! Thank you very much.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.